Hi, I'm Bill Moll. My wife Patty and I have been doing this ministry for 11 years. Um, so in this presentation, so who we are, that's who we are. I'm retired. I always say I'm obviously retired. I don't know why I say that, but I'm obviously retired. I've been retired for 15 years now. But this is what we've been doing for the last 11 years. But the cool thing about it is we're a very experienced leadership team. Hubert is here with me. He will speak a little later, and Sue Dunaway and her husband Russ have been helping us a lot. And the really neat thing about this whole process is that we've all had 11 to 14 years experience of doing exactly what we're talking about. And that's bless you. And that is not blessing you, but that's also what we do. But so that is what we've been doing in Tenderloin. This is kind of a picture of the building that we've been going to. So that's really our quick story. What we're going to cover today is what compromises Tenderloin Connect. Now it's going to might get a little confusing because this is the last 11 years it's been called Adopt a Building. I'll kind of walk you through that. And then what is a Tenderloin? If you don't know that, we'll give you some facts. But the really important part of what our presentation is, in my opinion, is the real stories. And that's what we've really done and met with the people. And we could talk about a lot of stories. We could honestly be here all day talking about stories of Tenderloin. And then we're going to interview, Hubert's going to interview Rick as a resident of Tenderloin right now. And where is this program going? So without further ado, our vision. Our vision is very clear. It's to intervene for the residents of the Tenderloin through building relationships. And the reason building relationships is bold there because that is what we do. The whole thing about what we try to do is build relationships with the residents of Tenderloin. We are not Meals on Wheels. That is not what we do. Yes, we try to take meals. That is true. But that a lot of times helps open the door for people we don't know, helps new volunteers, helps a lot of things. But I will tell you my great little story. I'll tell a little story I've added here. When we were starting to do this program in 2013, we got to City Impact that Thursday morning. There was no food. I go, oh no, what are we going to do? I don't know what to do here. So we kind of sat at Subway, tried to figure out what we're going to do, and said, okay, Patty, we have two choices. We either go home and work out somewhere, or we go do this. And we thought, well, we're here. God brought us here for a reason. So we started knocking on doors. And from that day, honestly, I never took food another day when we go during the week to the buildings because the relationships we had built. So when we go through the Tenderloin, so when you go through the Tenderloin, you see a part of the Tenderloin. You just see a piece of the Tenderloin of what the media shows. What we do is you get the street view of the homelessness, the crack dealers, all the stuff that goes on the streets. But what our home ministry is about is in the buildings, and that's what we do. So there's so much more behind the walls of the 90 plus SROs. This is where the story starts, and quite honestly, for us, it stops there. And then so my first time I was in Tenderloin, we sat there, I was nervous, and you'll hear my story a little later on. But so one pastor, Sean Brakey, made a statement. People come to the TL to help change it, but you get changed from the TL. And I tell you, anybody that's done our ministry or done our program, what we've done, they get changed through this whole process. So where am I? Push that button. Okay. Oh, right. Oh, we're in this part of the story now. Okay. So I have to do my disclaimer that I wanted to do in the beginning that I am the maitre d' of this organization, but also our group, Adopt a Building, going on to Tenderloin Connect, is a faith-based organization, and it truly is a faith-based organization. We don't hide it. We are proud of it. That's what we want to do. But I want to make it crystal clear, everybody in this room, or anybody you talk to, or I guess anybody out there who sees this, that we accept everyone. And that's one of the neatest moments we've had. Whatever their faith is, what they believe in, whatever their gender base is, we don't care. We could stay afterwards and tell you a billion stories about all that. So please understand that if I get too much in that direction, but we're very inclusive. So my story, my wife wants me to tell this, everybody wants me to tell this, and just so you know, my son always says, just tell your story, Dad, you'll cry, and then I'll get over it. So I'll tell you my story. So basically, if you remember, if anybody's here last week, that Dr. Phil presentation, we all take a step forward. Well, I would have fallen off the front of the stage because I had a great life growing up. My mom and dad lived 65 years. We had a wonderful marriage. We had issues. Obviously, nobody's perfect. I went to college, met my lovely wife in college in 1972. I did all that stuff. And so I had a great career. And started my career. I primarily came here at Macy's, and most of my career was in fashion merchandising. I went from trainee at Macy's to senior vice president of merchandising. Then I did some venture capital work into some startups. And then my last job was in Florida, where I was a chief merchandising officer for a store called Steinmart. So I had this cool career. I had a charmed life in so many ways. I grew up, I traveled with my family. We have a house in Woodside, did all this kind of stuff. But a whole time at the end of my career, my wife kept saying, "But Bill, we're not going to live like your parents. We're going to cruise a month. We're not doing that. We have to do something to support people and do things." I'd go, "Yep, yep, 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 yep." And she's going to forget about it. We'll just do something else and we'll go on. But during my Macy days, I had the typical lifestyle. I was a senior VP, I had the black BMW, wore the Armani suits. I didn't get into watches at that time, but I did everything else. And I drove up Taylor Street every day because I lived in the peninsula, drove up Taylor Street, parked my car in my parking space up in the garage over Farrell Street. And so I drove through the Tenderloin, and I just like, these people should get a grip. They got to get a life. Get me out of here. And I just didn't understand the Tenderloin. I'll be honest with you. It was a difficult thing to do for me to deal with. And so at the same time, I would come in at the time, well, if I was either traveling, I was a director of stores, I was in stores a lot during the week. I would come in on Saturdays about once a month, and Patty would bring her students she was taught at a Christian school in the peninsula, and they'd be up and down the Market Street feeding the homeless people, and she'd have a good time, and I'd be a wreck in my office wondering where she was, but she was always okay and tell me these great stories. And I would go, "Okay, that's really nice, Patty." And I just didn't honestly understand it. And so now I'm retired and trying to figure things out at the age of 59 and checking out different things to do in my life. And our pastor said, "Bill, I'd like you and Patty to co-lead a group to the Tenderloin at City Impact for a week." I went, "Well, yeah, that's great, because all I wanted to do was support Patty and help her with that." But I'm going to stay in the Tenderloin for 7 days, sleeping in a sleeping bag in a building. In the building. And so I go, "This is crazy. It's our 40th wedding anniversary. I don't know what I'm going to do," but I agreed to do it. I was a wreck. I actually prayed the night before we went that God would have the BART strike happen, that we couldn't go. Now, why I thought the BART strike would stop me going to Tenderloin, I have no idea, but that's what I did. I was so nervous when I got in there that I forgot our luggage, and my friend had to bring our luggage back in. So now we're in there. I'm relaxing because I'm there. It's in a building. I work in the kitchen, so I have a bathroom, food, and water. I can do this. Well, the cool thing about City Impact at the time, or what they did, the mission team, is you'd have a lot of time for prayer and worship before you went out into the buildings or out to your next exercise, whatever you're going to do. So Monday came, we did the stuff on the streets that Patty liked to do, and that was all fun, games, we did that stuff. And then I finally said, because I was getting more relaxed, I said, "So let's go to the buildings. Let's got this thing called Meal Deliveries, Adopt the Building." And the leader of it was this big guy, Joe from Texas. He had, mohawk, and he had all the body piercings and tattoos, and he's going to teach us how to do this thing. So he did. He was a great instructor. He told us what to do when I had to go to the building. So we did it, and she did not want to do it. That's amazing. My wife did not want to do this. And so that's kind of a funny side story later. But we went, and honestly, it was like amazing, because I was talking to everybody. They would answer me. I didn't think I could do this. The rooms are kind of weird. We were buildings, there were bugs all down the walls and all kinds of stuff. We saw things we don't want to talk about here. We saw all kinds of stuff. But that afternoon is when it all happened. This is when I get crazy, so forgive me. So we went to the Crosby Hotel, which my friend Hubert goes to, and I got to know him through this. And we knocked on the door. And it's room 212 on the first floor, or the second floor, I guess, room 212. And Brian answered the door. And we connected. I don't know why we connected. We connected. And he was typical Tenderloin in the sense he had, disheveled hair, very long fingernails. The room was dirty and everything. But he talked about his difficulty time with drugs and alcohol. He had been a hardware salesman for he's a hardware salesman for IBM. Got disheveled, things got goofed up, and he was a Tenderloin. But the whole time, it was just this amazing connection we had. It was amazing. But the most amazing thing was, and understand when I say what I'm about to say, if I can get it all out, is that this doesn't happen to me, what I'm about to say. I really felt God speaking to me, saying, "In my eyes, you two are the same." You can understand, for me, that's not how I was raised. You two are equal in my eyes. So all of a sudden, he's equal to me in my eyes, God's eyes. He's got to be equal to me in my eyes too. And he said, "This is where you will be. This is where you're going to spend the rest of your time." So there it is. So for the next, since Really, it'll be 11 years next week. This is what we've been doing. We finished the market mission trip up. Patty met a guy. So we took on Crescent Manor, which is building right here, and so we started going in every Thursday, and Friday and Sundays for the adopted learning program. I mean, every Thursday on our own, took notes and got to know people, and it was amazing. So we did that for 2 years, and then after that, they asked us to become to be staff members and run the organization. So we started then in 2015, going in 3 to 4 days a week, and it became our life, to be honest with you, and it still is. And we did that pretty much up to the pandemic. As you, my notes are here, wherever I am here, but that's what we did. And so it was an amazing experience to see God's hands changing my life. My wife's life had never been that way, so that's a blessing in her life. But I just had mine. That's where I was, and so it really changed my life. And so that's what we did. San Francisco. So the adopted building. So what is up there was started by Francis Chan in 2011 when he was between his mega church in Simi Valley. Came up here and started the ministry, and Russ and Sue and Heber, I think, were part of it at that point in time. But it was an amazing ministry. And it really ran very well up until 2024. The pandemic kind of threw things up, and it kind of got goofed up. We can talk about that a little later in the transition. But in the peak of a time, we were visiting 2,000 residents a month in 35 to 40 SROs every month. And it was just a lot of fun. We had tons of volunteers. We had interns. We had regular volunteers. We had school ministry students. And it was just an amazing time. And then the pandemic did change things, so it started throwing things off. But a side note I put down here, I think I put that in one of my notes, and I'm getting goofed up here, but the pandemic comes, and Patty and I well, then I guess we're in our late 60s, who knows how old we were, but we were definitely in the age you're supposed to be careful, we know what was going on, and Patty's had diabetes for a long time, so we didn't do anything till we were vaccinated and everything. And so once we had the second vaccination shot, we thought, okay, we can go back to the Tenderloin. So we hadn't been there for almost over a year. And so we were very excited to go back, but very scared in some ways because we don't know what we're going to get ourselves into. Now, understand this was in whatever year that was. It was 2021. We had gone through the pandemic. We had gone through Black Lives Matter. We had gone through all kinds of racial issues going on in this world, in this country. And we're white, we have gray hair, whatever we have. And so we're going in there going, okay, what's going to happen? We got to be careful and everything. We've been here for a long time. The buildings won't let us in. So we have people who are going to be out in the streets that meet us. So the first day we're walking up Turk Street. Now, if you've been on Turk Street, it's a fun street to walk up sometimes, and it was crazy. So, but one thing you learn when you're in the Tenderloin is that if you hear somebody going to disturb you, just kind of eyes front, just keep on going, just be polite and walk and keep on trucking. So somebody up there, the big guy, he's a big guy, he's in a wheelchair, he's screaming at us, and I'm going, okay, let's just stay focused, just get by him, we'll be fine. What I didn't remember was my wife had her San Francisco City Impact sweatshirt on. I just had whatever I had on. He could get close to him. He said, when are you going to open your church? I missed you guys. I can't wait to get back in your place. Well, that broke it. That was point one that broke us. And we laughed and talked to him for a while and explained what happened and everything. Then we got to Crescent Manor, which is up by Turk and Larkin. And we go up there, and we're meeting some of our residents. We're trying to, well, can we hug you? Can we not hug you? Fine. Well, we're going to get this. We're going to get it. We got vaccines. What that's going to do? So we hugging people, and everybody's crying, and everybody's laughing. So we hear this voice going, "They're here. They're here." I'm like, "What is this voice?" Well, I wish I had a picture of him. His name's Big Mike. We call him Big Mike. He's big. I mean, this guy is big. He's on the streets in Oakland somewhere. He's got the afro. He's got the earrings. He's got everything. He supported us like crazy. He would throw the guys out of the community room for Patty's Bible study. And so didn't think he'd ever see us again. He gives me the biggest bear hug. He picked me up off my feet. I'm going, oh my gosh, we're back. And so that's the cool thing about the TL. If you just relax and enjoy it, it's a wonderful place to be. So, but it's in the Tenderloin. So the Tenderloin is the Tenderloin. It's, it's 50 square blocks. It's all the kind of stuff we know it is. It has all the bad things about it. It's comprised, it has the highest crime rate, the highest drug usage, the highest homelessness populations going on it. But I will tell you, when you get into Tenderloin, there's some amazing people in there. and there's some amazing things that can be done there. And I can be honest with you, I live in Woodside, California, which we don't see a lot of homelessness in Woodside, California. I never feel more comfortable walking. At times we are more comfortable walking to Tenderloin than we are in Woodside or Cupertino or wherever else we are. So it is what it is, but it's an amazing place to be. There's my slide. I'm sorry. It's 29,000 residents, 3,000 are children, which we've not really gotten that involved in children's ministries. We did sometimes. We have great people there. Love to in the future, but right now we have focus on adults. 60% of the San Francisco unhoused in the TL. The income is 31,000 versus 80,000. 35% of the residents are under 15,000, which is an amazing number. It's the epicenter of crime, as you all know. The immigrants comprise 40% of the population, which I honestly think is a little higher than that. And it's a fun place to be. And the biggest issue, though, honestly, is isolation. And that's really what Adoptive Living is all about, because they don't want to leave their rooms. And so isolation is huge, and it's always been that way. So what do we do as it goes on to Tenderloin Connect? Well, as that's the bridge, so that's what we're now connecting back with YWAM. We will meet the fourth Sunday of every month at 2:00 in YWAM's facility for a time of reflection and prayer before we go out. And all volunteers will be assigned to a building with experienced leaders. We will gather food, go out, and then we come back and debrief. So it's really that simple of a ministry to what we do. So the stories, these are great stories. So these are stories that Patty and I dealt with at Crescent Manor. Hubert could do just as many stories. Sue and Russ could do them. Who's all here from the ambassador team is going to be here. Who's here? I know Jeff is here. So the ambassador team's here. Anybody who's been in buildings can give you the same type of stories. If we go, I guess on this slide here if I go on that slide, the far right slide that was our first Christmas party. So our pastor says to us, "Okay, what can we do to help your building and everything there?" I said, "Well, I don't know." So I said, "We're not sure." So we ended up doing we got gifts from our people in our church, and we had a Christmas party. We have no idea how to do this Christmas party. So we talked to the people there. We got it together, put advertisements up. We had a Christmas party. We have gifts, and each resident got a small gift. They got a gift card to a deli, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. And then that's what we did. And we had over 40 to 50% of the residents were there, which was just amazing. It was amazing. But the coolest thing that happened was that we got a phone call, I think the Friday night before the Sunday we were doing this, and they said, the social worker said, "Well, Bill, we realized that, you're a faith-based organization. You want to pray, but we can't pray because of the rules." And I said, "We get that. We understand. Okay, we can't pray." Well, there's this guy, the big guy, the Santa Claus outfit, he walks in the building. So we're all going, "Okay, we're not going to do it." So he comes in, he goes, "This is like a party. This is a Christmas party. We got to pray." So he could pray, so we're fine. So we prayed, had a wonderful time. But the coolest thing at the end was we sat with a bunch of the residents and said, and they were very emotional. They said, "No one has ever done this for us. No one's ever had a party for us." And so we've done this party now every year up until the pandemic, and hopefully this year we'll be able to do it again. But it's amazing to bring the people together. On the far left, on the other side, we did this in the year after that. So we had a mission team, and we were all in here. We had about 20 people from our church going, and Wednesday night's free night. Well, when you live in the Bay Area, you're not going to need to go to a ball game and visit some tourist section, so you don't know what to do. So I said, we should do something in the building. Now, once again, a lot of anxiety and nervous about this because we've never done something like that in the building. We have no idea what it's going to do. So we talked to the residents, and they go, "What would you like?" They go, "Well, we never get ice cream." So we got some big tubs of ice cream. So we all went to dinner the night beforehand, and I said, "So what's it going to be like?" I said, "I have no idea if 2 people are going to show up or not." We got there, the place was packed. We went through 3 or 4 big tubs of ice cream, had a blast, laughed, and finally said, "Guys, it's 10 o'clock at night. You live here. We have to walk 5 blocks to the Tenderloin to get back to where we're staying," so we left it. The middle top picture that's just meant for a point of view. That is so, as this program, as I said, was building, and as Adoptive Living was building in the Tenderloin, that is, believe it or not, the Thanksgiving outreach that, and Patty's speaking, I've been standing beside her. There were 225 people in that outreach doing nothing but buildings. We had 25 building parties and had a lot of food and had a ton of fun. But that's what this type of an organization can do to the Tenderloin once we get the volunteers are right. Then the bottom picture is a fun picture for us. That is Patty and I a few years ago. And that's Lefty, who she will talk about. But that the person in the middle, and the lady, that's Jean. Jean and her husband, Mike, owned the Turk Larkin Deli for 35 years. It's right across the street. It was right across the street from Crescent Manor where we went. And they just had a great place there. We got to know them. We did a lunch every Thursday. We took residents, whoever could go over. We'd have a little bowl of minestrone soup, or they have made fresh lasagna. And we just would have lunch and hang out. And just, it was an amazing time for about 5 or 6 years that we just did that every Thursday afternoon. It was a highlight of our time because we just kind of hung out. They brought questions. That one guy, Harry Ryan, would ask these goofy questions of us all the time. And it was just an amazing, amazing time. So that's what we do in the Tenderloin. But the real story, my wife is going to come up next. She's going to talk about Lefty. And as I say in here, when I asked him, why are you called Lefty? He said, well, because I'm just not right. So, Patty, you get to talk about Lefty.
All right. Can we ask you some questions? Is that all right? Any questions about the TL Connect? Yes.
I'm just curious. You worked at Macy's. Were you able to get them clothing, shoes, anything like that because of your relationship?
Well, it had been, unfortunately, about 15 years since that time. But we were able to get a lot of food stuff and clothing from that. We worked through, we had a thrift store at the time, that we got a lot of stuff there. And then through the rescue mission. And actually up till, when I was still there, we were getting a lot of stuff from the Gap. Gap is a local, and they make their own clothes. We're doing a lot of Gap clothes in there. So yeah, we were able to get clothes, not for Macy's, but for other places we do. So good question. Anything else before I turn to my lovely wife? Here she is.
I get the fun part. So Lefty was one of the residents in our building when we were focused on Crescent Manor, which is right up there. And in the beginning, we would just go to the different. We had actually permission to go to every door and see if they wanted food and just conversation. So we did this for a few months, and I mean, when you see somebody who's drunk all the time, you kind of, what's your reaction? It's like, well, but somehow we kept running across this young man. His name was Lefty. And we got to know him. He was one of these people that he kept his room very neat, which was surprising, just because some of the rooms you come across are, they don't let you in because the room looks so bad. Because everything they have is in this room, everything. They're all their worldly possessions. So we got to know Lefty little by little. And his background was that he was born in Illinois. He had 2 brothers, and his parents split up. And when his earliest memory was when he didn't even know how old he was, but he was young, and he was a little boy. He was walking through the field holding a big man's hand. That's when he was in the orphanage. So his parents split up. His mom put him and his 2 brothers that were older, a little older than him, in the orphanage. So they were there for probably 3 or 4 years when their grandmother came and took them and adopted them. So she took them back to Illinois and on her farm. It was kind of a crazy time because her daughter and the daughter's son also lived with them, and it was just crazy, a little violent. But the grandmother would take them to church every Sunday, and if they went on Wednesdays with her, she'd give them ice cream, like they could stop and get ice cream. So that was kind of his background. His mother, though, when he was about 13, and his brothers, they're like each a year or 2 apart, so years older than him. She came and like had this big argument with the grandmother and took him and his brothers to live with her in Florida, basically to sell drugs for her boyfriend. So at that time, he was he realized that he had a half sister and got into drugs there too. And also he was molested. So when they got older, all three of these young men joined the armed services, and he was in the Marines. After he got out of the Marines, he became a truck driver, still on drugs, driving cross country. He ended up in San Francisco, which was totally on the opposite, like far away from his family. And he was really addicted to meth and lived on the street for 13 years. When we caught up with him, he had been in impressive manner, so he had a roof over his head for another 13 years. And if you would catch him at a time, like his room, the paint was falling off the ceiling, and the doors didn't work real well. Sometimes the locks didn't work. He would always say, "You know what? I'm really grateful because it's better than a box. I'm not living in a box." So he was always grateful, which was, that was basically something that really moved our hearts. So, but because of his background, his personality he was basically a loner, and he was really into drinking. Now, a few years before that, he had prayed that God would get him off of meth. And what happened was, when he was on the street, his dog one day or one night picked up his bag of meth and took it somewhere. So that was it. He wasn't on meth anymore, but now he's drinking. So he was basically quiet, a loner. He loved being isolated. And the neighbors in the building, really the idea they had of him was that he was a drunk. They would, if they cared enough about him, they would pick him up off the street at night and try to get him to get into his room. So they really didn't have a very high opinion of him. So when we met him, he's telling us all these stories and coming to lunch with us on Thursdays. So we're trying to talk him into getting a cell phone, because after a while, we wanted to be in touch with him and find out how he was doing. Are you still alive? Do you need help? Where are you? Eventually, he finally got a phone. That is this picture of him. He was really into learning how to use his phone. For us, I got my phone. I'm like, oh, somebody just tell me how to do this. But he was reading all the instructions, and we get funny messages at different times or phone calls. It's like, oh, I thought he was calling somebody else. But anyway, it was really good to see him doing that. But he was really fine otherwise, being isolated. And like I said, we would take him to lunch. Now his situation, but it's a real common situation there, is they get a certain amount of money a month from the government, and that's supposed to last all month. But for people who are addicted, it's gone, like just in maybe 2 weeks. So they don't have any food, and we decided that we were going to try, and he was kind of okay. Maybe he could save some money. Maybe he could make the money last all month. So he got to the point where he trusted us enough that he would give us some of his money to hold. Here, hold $100. And then as the month would go on, he'd go, oh, I really need 20. Oh, well, yeah, I really need 20 here. But he was trying. And we thought, well, what we can do is maybe try to get his mind off of drinking early in the month, so that he can get through it for a while and then have enough money to make it through the rest of the month. So we were on our lunches on Thursdays. We'd go, okay, so in a couple of days, in the beginning of the month, do you want to go do something? Do you want to go to a movie? Do you want to go to a ball game? Do you want to go to the beach? Do you want to come to our house? He's like, no. And we did that for months. And then one day we were sitting in the deli, and he said, I'm coming to your house tonight. And we're like, oh my gosh. So Bill was like a little concerned. And he's like, well, You can't drink at our house. You have to smoke outside. Just trying to make him think about it a little bit. No, I'm coming to your house tonight. So that's what he did. And it was really cute because he said, well, I have a sleeping bag. I have my sleeping bag from the Marines under my mattress, which he did. It was under his mattress, and he had that all rolled up at 4 o'clock, ready to go. And he said that he was going to sleep outside, and he would scare the deer away from our garden. But we didn't. No, you're not going to sleep outside. So he knew he couldn't drink when he came to our house. And when actually driving there, he was this person that said, well, I get a shower once a month, whether I need it or not. And so we're driving in our car home, and we're like, oh my gosh. The smell was not so good. So when we got to our house, we're trying to talk him into getting a shower. Bill went up and got a shower. I'm like, Lefty. And he came down going, oh, it's so good. And Lefty's like, no, I don't have clothes. And I'm like, well, you can use Bill's clothes. And that's what he ended up doing. He couldn't believe we had a washer and dryer in our house, that we could actually wash his clothes. So he got his shower, and as you can see, he has really long hair and a long beard, and it's like, well, for those of you who are maybe old enough to remember this, there's Johnson & Johnson No More Tangles. We use that to get his hair combed out. So he and Bill were outside cooking dinner on the grill, and we brought, we're sitting there having dinner, and he said, you guys eat like this every night? And we're like, yeah. He goes, oh, I just eat sitting on my bed. I don't have a table. There's nothing like that. So the first night, we have him downstairs in the den in a cot, and we're upstairs. We look at each other and we're like, oh my gosh, what have we done? Are we even going to be alive tomorrow? And we're like, well, I'm just going to trust God, because we didn't expect to be doing this. And when we came down in the morning, we're still alive. We asked him, well, how'd you sleep? Thinking, oh, he must have gotten a good night's sleep. He goes, I was awake all night. I didn't know what you guys were going to do to me. So then that day, we were going to the athletic center, since I have diabetes and I try to exercise every day. So we gave him a choice. Do you want to stay here, or do you want to come with us? He goes, oh no, I'm staying here. So once again, we're going out our driveway going, oh boy, I don't know. Because we knew him, but you never know. So we came home, and all the windows are closed, the garage door is closed, and he came running out to meet us, and he said, why did you leave all your doors and windows open? Do you know how long it took me to figure out how to do your garage door? And that somebody's going to break in here, and they're just going to steal everything. And we're like, well, and then he told us that the phone rang, and he wasn't sure what to do. It was ringing where he was sleeping in his room. And if he didn't answer it, maybe it was us, and maybe we needed something. So we tried to answer the phone, but in the meantime, he bumped the computer. He didn't even see a computer before that. And it's all going off, and he was just like shocked. He had no idea what to do. So we reassured him everything was okay. And then as that day went on, Bill was, okay, since we had jackets that said adopt a building, residents would ask us, do we own the building? And they would like say, oh, you work for the government, you own the building. We're like, oh my gosh, no, we don't own the building. So Lefty is like, okay, can you show me who owns the building, that you don't own the building? So he and Bill were out on the deck on the computer, and Bill was trying to show him this. And in the meantime, Lefty said, well, can you find people on there? And Bill said, well, yeah, sometimes. Well, he told, anyway, he gave Bill some information, and he contacted his brother, which is like the one that's closest to him in his age. It was actually his brother. So they got connected. His brother, he hadn't seen his family in like 30 years, and they figured he was dead. And this brother had asked him, I don't know how he got the message to him, but wanted him to be best man at his wedding. And Lefty just said, yeah, no. I'm just too wrapped up in drugs. I'm not going anywhere. So they figured he was dead. But that started a huge thing with Lefty being in touch with his family. He had, his other brother, actually his half sister, and they had Zoom meetings. That was, I guess that's not up there. This is of them on the deck contacting his family. So when we would go in then on Sundays, they would do these Zoom calls, and Bill would bring the computer in so that he could have a Zoom call with his family, which was really, really cool because they thought he wasn't alive anymore. So at that time, Bill said that I was also doing Bible study in the building, and Lefty started to come to Bible study, which was kind of cool because he would have his glasses on and his Bible and a notebook and a pen, and he'd come in and he was real serious and studious about it. And he was really good. Everybody would be kind of like, oh, they were getting to see him in a different way. And actually at that time, he had not had anything after that. It was like he had no alcohol for like 15 months. And so people were getting to see him differently. It's like, this guy is actually pretty smart and he knows the Bible. And because his room was all neat and tidy, I don't know, maybe he was a compulsive tidy person, I don't know, but people would just come in his room. We were always welcome in there. I'd come and have lunch with him a lot of times. If Bill was busy or we were doing something else, it's like, oh, I need to go see Lefty anyway. I can have lunch with him. So he was very hospitable, and people would come in just to have coffee, and he'd make them coffee, and they'd ask him all kinds of. He had one of those big, huge atlases that have maps, lots of maps, and he would go over maps with them, and they'd ask him all kinds of questions. So everybody was seeing him in a different way. He would people would come and play chess with him, and he would play chess with his brother over the phone. Now, I don't know how you do that, but they would do it. They make bets on who's going to win the whole thing. But eventually, in 2018, he passed away, and I found him in his room. Like I said, he would, on days when he knew we were going to be there, he'd leave his door unlocked and just expect that we would just walk in. But the cool thing was that we had a memorial service, and his brothers and a cousin came out for the service. And there were like lots of people there. It was a really cool time. So this is basically the story of like a good example of the goal of visiting residents. What it really is to see them in a different way. Like we could see these residents through God's eyes, not how we prejudge them. And that his life was definitely helped in that period of time. And he got connected with his family. He could see that he could, put the bottle away for a while and just enjoy life and just really feel valued by us. Like he was like a brother to us. He was at our house like 3 different times, and the last time was for a week. And he would want to do Bible study. Every time he came after dinner, he was like, no, I don't want to watch a movie. I don't want to watch TV. Come on. And he would practically lead our Bible study. So he was really doing well. And the thing is, after, like, as time went on, I could see that he was such a good friend because he was such a good listener. He loved talking and telling about his family and his life, but he also was such a good listener that he was really into hearing about you. He really did care and he loved us too. So basically, these relationships happen by just going in and helping a person to see that you do value them and you care about what they say. You just listen. And that's really the way we basically show God's love and show them their value simply by listening and then hearing about them.
Those stories are just, honestly, they just touch the surface. Honestly, they just touch the surface of what goes on. So, but thank you for what you did. Yes, and well, so we are restarting this program. Basically, a quick one before we started it, that Hubert had been going to the Crosby and Elm. Russ and Sue have been going to the West Hotel. They've asked their team. Jeff, I know, is here, and some other people. And there's, I don't know if Lucky made it here or not. He was going to the Pac Bay, but we were not connected. We just weren't connected. We got to figure things out looking back there. And so we were connected. We had to figure out how to do this. And so Pat and I started praying about it, started meeting with people. We started having dinners with Hubert and Russ and Sue about what to do. And we met the people, and we had been wanting to meet the people at YWAM. So we reached out to Tim Sabota, and Patty and I went in and met with them first. And then there's like this is love at first sight. They wanted to get in the buildings. We wanted to get somebody with them. So we are going to start up with YWAM officially on the 25th of August. I told you the timing of it. Yeah, we're very excited about it. And so, yeah, we're going to be there. We'll give information on to meet up with us if you would like to come. We meet at, as I said earlier, 2:00 in the afternoon. There, you'll be taken care of. Trust me, you'll be taken care of. And so we will be partnering with other organizations in Tenderloin. That is something we really, really believe in. The Salvation Army has a Croc Center on Church Street, excellent organization. St. Anthony's has a dining hall there with some food. They also have medical there. City Impact, which we've been with for a long time, has a church service on Sunday and has a rescue mission. And City Hope, which I hope to get Paul Trudeau here sometime soon, has an amazing organization at Eddie and Larkin towards Polk Street. So there's other organizations I might be missing, but they really can be very helpful with what we're doing. Paul got me excited, so I put it up here, this Ellis app. I know it's not ready yet. I know who's working on it. I know it's not ready yet. But trust me, it will be put to good use. Be absolutely put to good use. So that's kind of what we do. Kind of what my thing says, that my picture that they gave us 2 years ago says, if you don't come, who will? And that's how you should think about it. So that's really how you think about it. So anybody have any questions for me or anything, or for anybody else here?
So if you have questions, we're going to be hanging around in the room here. We
Yeah.
do have the Recovery DAO meeting in the conference room, but we're going to have the whole team here available to answer questions. Do we want to take a couple? Or
Yeah, we have about 10 minutes or so. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, Mike. Oh, sorry, Anne-Marie.
All good.
Oh, no. Questions?
What was your name again? Rick, I have a question for you with City Impact. So when you're encouraging people into housing, is that transitional housing or is that SROs?
That was like SRO for the hot team, right?
Yeah.
For the hot team, yeah. It was through the city. SRO.
SROs. Are there specific SROs that you recommend over others?
Like THC,
Mm-hmm.
Tenderloin Housing Clinic was pretty much the main main one that they use
Okay.
for the city.
Beautiful. And that one is like a navigation center, or that's a literal SRO?
They're all different, SROs, but they run the THC.
Ah,
Tenderloin Housing.
okay.
It's an organization.
Okay, very nice. So these are the highest quality ones.
I wouldn't say the highest quality, but it's what the city uses. It's their company.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing.
Say something. Yeah, the THC is they have the largest number of buildings in the Tenderloin. We work with them very closely. Yeah, they're not. There's they have some good buildings. There's not so good buildings. They all have that way. But they're good at what they do.
I was just kind of interested in what church you started this whole thing with.
Well, it was really City Impact. City Impact's been in business, been in operation for about 40 years. So they had their program. We were going to church in Cupertino, run the Life Assembly of God in Cupertino, but that this was City Impact had the ministry going in 2011 with Francis Chan, but they've been in the Tenderloin for 40 years. They really started with a school, and then they were growing the organizations for parts of rescue and stuff like that. And then Francis Chan's wanted to get into buildings, and so that's why. So yeah, it started with City Impact. There's just, if people like books, you want to understand. This is not. I'm not pushing. I have no book. I've never read a book, but there's two books to understand that really has touched my heart. Really helps you understand what we've been all talking about. What Rick and Hubert talked, and Patty talked, and I was talking. One is Same Kind of Different as Me There's a movie out on it. The movie's okay. I mean, it's good. Probably it's a good movie, but the book's incredible. It's truly about a story of an Afro-American guy that came from Louisiana and met a very wealthy art dealer. And each chapter goes person to person. It's an amazing book. It's all true story. I met the guy one time who actually was the art dealer at a conference one time. It's amazing people. And then the other book was what I got a couple of years ago. So Under the Overpass. Highly recommend that book. It's amazing because this guy graduated from Westmont College and wanted to trust his faith. And he and a friend had no money, a guitar, a notebook, and a change of clothes. And they did 6 cities and traveled. They panhandled for the money to get to the next city. Amazing story of real life in there. And his toughest city was San Francisco, and the toughest place all he went to was the Tenderloin. So I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. So, anyhow, any more questions or comments? Or yes, sir.
We've got Ellen in the back.
Oh, Mike.
I give you a thumbs up for what you have been doing. I used to live Tenderloin as a property manager,
Oh,
and I watch how people deteriorate and how the police do not care and how the government abuse the homeless. And I'm really grateful that God raised up a lot of people in San Francisco that they no longer silent, but take care of people. And we have an appeal to heaven that we pray on Market Street and 7 every Saturday morning, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, because we believe there's a spiritual warfare in the Tenderloin area. I remember 2 years ago, we have a sister who worked for the city, and God wake her up in the middle of the day, tell her start going to Tenderloin to preach the good news from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning.
wow.
Yeah, that's how we know that we have a super stronghold, the spiritual warfare in Tenderloin.
Which building were you in?
I was at 174 Alex, Maria Manor. That's 120 unit family, single family
Oh, yeah.
housing unit. Yeah. I worked there for 7 years.
Wonderful. Thank
I
you.
live there, work there, eat there, and that's how I know the stronghold.
Very much so.
Let's give Bill and Patty a big round of applause. Thank you so much. And Rick and Hubert, thank you so much for sharing your story. Such an inspiration.